Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Med School Minutes podcast, where we discuss what it takes to attend and successfully complete a medical program. This show is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. Here is your host, Kaushik Gua.
Welcome back to another episode of Med School Minutes, where we talk about everything MD with this focus on international students, specifically Caribbean students. Today we have two very important guests, Dr. Saad Hanan and Dr. Kiran Nizamani. They are currently our St. James counselors. They will be talking a little bit more about the counseling sessions, what counseling entails, and specifically, since we are in residency season, what does St. James actually do for residency support? So we'll get a little more insight into that. So without further ado, Dr. Hanan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. As you stated, we are the USMLE Counselors working for St. James School of Medicine. And we are Canadian, the two of us, Dr. Nizamani and I, and hoping to apply this year. And I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, maybe a little bit of my hobbies. I'm from Canada, so I love winter sports, hockey, skating, skiing. These are things I enjoy. And I'm enjoying the Chicago summer at the moment.
Awesome. Is this your first summer in Chicago?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, because in the previous years during COVID, I kind of had to get shipped back to Canada.
Okay. That kind of shows that you probably went through your rotations very, very quickly. Sign up a very good student. So how about you, Dr. Nizamani?
So I graduated from St. James within the last year. And then I got lucky enough to have this job to be a counselor. It's been so rewarding meeting such amazing students from St. James, getting to know the Chicago head office. Honestly, it's been amazing. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know the people behind the scenes who are doing so much and all the things that they're dealing with. So it's great to know that. I went to Waterloo for my undergrad. So I'm also Canadian, as we all know. And being Canadian, I think, comes with its own challenges and also experiences. There's a lot that I think we can talk to, but also some of the barriers that we have to navigate through. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so one question that I always get all the time, not just me, but everybody in St. James, and I think when you guys came to the school, you had the same question, is what kind of support does the school give me for residency? Because technically residency, you're done with the program at that point. Right. The biggest question that even like when we deal with accreditors, even they ask us this question: what support do you give your students? For most schools, just because residency is post finishing your education, they don't really need to, neither do we really need to give any kind of support. Right. But why don't you guys jump in and tell me a little bit about the kind of support and the amazing things that you guys have spearheaded and initiated.
Sure.
So why don't we start with you, Dr. Hanan?
So did you want to know about some of the programs or things that we are doing for the residents who have matched or the individuals who are in the cycle to match?
So why don't we do both?
Gotcha.
Let's start with students who are going into the process of residency, who've never done residency in their life or never gone through the application process before.
Okay. So those who are, they're trying to get into residency and getting in that process just their first time, not only does the school provide a timeline, but we also provide a lot of workshops. There are workshops, there are counseling sessions. One of the best things about this position is the wide range of students that we often see. We get students from MDs, MD1s, and all the basic sciences, but you also get students who are in their fourth year preparing to match. And some of the things that they often ask, and every student always worries about these things, are not only their chances of matching, but what are some of the things that they can work on and improve in their applications. Personal statements, things to talk about on their letters of recommendation and how to ask for letters of recommendation, and generally what things to include in the application, which are all very important. If you look at a lot of the programs and you speak to them, they always ask and look for holistic approaches when selecting candidates for the initial interview. So St. James allows individuals like me, Karen. There's also Dr. Ramirez and other individuals within the basic sciences that provide information for exactly these things: what to do on your personal statements, what to write about, what to do during the application seasons. We provide a guideline and we give them a schedule, what you have to be completed by this time, what you should be doing by this time. And on top of all of this, we have workshops coming up, right? Workshops to help their interview skills, workshops to help them write their personal statements. And I think this is by far one of the best things that a school can do as a way to get their students to be better candidates.
Okay. Dr. Nizamani, so to whatever Saad mentioned, could you potentially tell us chronologically what all the resources really are and what does St. James actually provide the students?
Absolutely. So just on an ongoing basis, beyond even the residency cycle, as we do counseling sessions, not only do we help students with step 1 and 2 preparation, but we also help them in terms of, their personal statements, as Dr. Hanan mentioned. So I actually just edited a student's personal statement not too long ago. We also tell them, based on their assessment, their scores and their step 1 and 2 scores, we tell them, okay, this is kind of like the best time for you to go ahead and start thinking about your personal statement. And also, as an institution, we have webinars available, right? So we do a series of webinars that we have had, and those are available to the students. The first one would be, had kind of like the timeline throughout the residency cycle, because the timeline is so important. Mm-hmm. You need to be aware exactly when, now that we have this new supplemental application, a lot of the residency programs require that, right? So having supplemental application, when to submit that, what the deadline for that is, because that is before the actual ERAS deadline, mm-hmm. or when the applications go online, which is September 28th. So we have a webinar kind of delineating all of those specific deadlines. Another webinar we have is kind of the ERAS application. So how to fill it out, because that's actually a very big gray area. Everyone fills it out differently. There's a lot of subjectivity to it. What do program directors look for? What specialty? What do they require? Do you need it in bullet points or paragraphs? So ERS application, that's second webinar. The third is also like the tips and tricks. So like the interview season, how to get the attention of like the PD and the residents maybe who are already within the program right as you reach the application season or deadline. The next thing that we do have is mock interviews, right? And that's something on the newer end that we will do. And I think that's so important. It's so precious because you need to be able to communicate the information yourself, right? You need to have like that intro speech, right? How do you introduce yourself? How do you get the program director's attention, right? What are they looking for? They are going to see hundreds of students. Mm-hmm. So why should they choose you for like those 4 spots, right? Okay. So we have those mock interviews as well. So, and I'm also, another thing that we have is we have interviews with PDs or residents. Okay. Yes. Last week we did actually a webinar. It was about 2 hours long with a prior SJSM alumni who is now a chief resident. Okay. On what his program looks for in applicants. Okay. And also how we can prepare, but also how we can, make our application specific to that specialty. Okay. And he said he would only take St. James students and nobody else, right? Right.
we didn't say that, and we didn't ask him for that, but
but so this particular gentleman, he is an alumni of St. James. Correct. And he is the chief resident. Correct. And a chief resident typically has a lot of say in the residency process. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. A lot of it.
They're on the interview panel.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they're also, usually what they do is they're also responsible for, I believe, the scoring, because they usually have scorecards. Yeah. Depending on the different points, whether you are from the same town, mm-hmm. you may have more points.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff we kind of had, for lack of a better term, rudiments of it. Yeah. For a couple of years. But I think the last group of counselors kind of tried to formalize it, but I think you guys have added a lot more. Can you tell me about what are the specifics that you guys have added, what we didn't have? Like, for example, you mentioned we didn't have any interview sessions last year. But I know that you guys are really working hard to establish that for our current students. And then last year we had, so every year we always have at least one program, either the program director or the administrative team coming and pitching the program to our students. But I think that's changed significantly. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about that? Why don't we start with you, Dr. Hanan?
Sure. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to kind of put St. James out there, make it a more memorable and a school that a lot of programs and directors know of.
Okay.
One of the big things is that a lot of program directors, a lot of programs often, they may not know of certain schools. They may not know much about Caribbean schools. And so the things that we wanted to do was kind of go out there and be like, hey, Caribbean medical schools and IMG students specifically, are great candidates and individuals that you want on your residency slots. You want these individuals. And how we did that was we wanted to outreach during conferences. So we started going to a lot of conferences. And one of the things that we often do at these conferences is that we ask individuals that have some say in the residency process, some say in the interview process, to come and have an interview, have a webinar for St. James to provide some sort of clues as to what they are looking for. But it was a two-parter. One, for them to give advice, and second, for them to get familiar with St. James as an establishment that is well-renowned, world-renowned, and producing great applicants for them. So we have spoken to many residents. Moving forward, we're getting not only residents, we're getting program directors to come and have conversations with our students, and answer the big question: what are you looking for?
Okay.
Right. And we wanted to not only get the program director's information because it is a cumulative process from multiple faculty members. We also got other individuals, associated deans or recruitment officers or program coordinators. All of these individuals all play an important role when it comes to selecting candidates. And we wanted to get every and each of their inputs as to help St. James students make their applications so it's perfect for all of those gaps, so they don't have any pitfalls where at any one of these block points that they get rejected.
Okay. And you had mentioned about the interview process. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to residency interviews, there's a lot that can be said within the 1 to 2 minutes as you begin a residency interview.
Okay.
And that can really set in stone how a program director will take the rest of your conversation. Okay. So sometimes there are interviews where program directors, after 1 or 2 questions, they'll be like, now ask me questions.
Okay.
A lot of the times, applicants are not prepared of what kind of questions they should ask a program director, a resident, a faculty member, right? These are 3 different sort of hierarchy of physicians who you will potentially be working with. And you need to know what kind of questions to ask them. And you need to know, if you're applying to a particular specialty, what kind of questions are relevant to that specialty. Right? So these mock interviews will help us prepare applicants of not just what kind of questions, to ask of the resident, but also the PD, but also the faculty member, and then also how to best put your best foot forward when it comes to answering a question. How can you be impactful in the 60 seconds that you have to grab somebody's attention, to communicate exactly what you want to, your characteristics, your traits? You can't just say, I'm a team player.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. If they say, what is your best, what is your strength? You can't just be like, okay, I'm a team player. No, show it through an example. So these are things that a lot of applicants may not have, experience with.
Okay.
A lot of people don't have a lot of, they've been studying. Mm-hmm. Right? They've been doing clinicals. They have had patient interactions.
Hopefully they've been studying.
Right. But I mean, if they've gotten to the application cycle, hopefully they have. But, yes, your preceptor will go ahead and ask you medical questions. But can you show a relation with the PD or with the faculty member or with the resident or with the location?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. And
So this is
actually,
what we'll-
Dr. Nizamani brings up a great point. Saying like, having an example of team player or talking about a certain strength that you have. A lot of students actually don't know that they have these strengths, right? They, if they say, "Oh, I'm a team player," and then say, "Well, give us an example," they often become, "Well, I don't really have an example of a team player." Well, actually, you do, right? Coordinating or working with a group of students in let's say a study session, it's team working. You guys are working together to get to an answer, right? That's an example. So most often what our goal is for these students to understand the strengths that they have and have them understand the ways that they have these strengths, and so they could talk about it in the interview sessions, right? All of the people who have come up to this point, many of them can do the abilities and are team players or can be leaders, but they just need to be able to find those examples within their life. And obviously, person to person, they differ. But that doesn't mean that they don't have that trait or do not possess that trait.
So, Dr. Nizamani, how does having a practice interview with St. James, because in all likelihood, some of the folks will be administrative personnel.
Right.
In these mock interviews or whatever you're organizing. How does this really help? And what's the structure? What are you really planning?
So one of the benefits of doing a practice interview with somebody from St. James, yes, it might be a person who is in the administrative side, but actually program directors have a lot of administrative experience.
Okay.
And a lot, because we're a medical school, right? The administration is heavily involved in speaking to program directors or faculty members or prior graduates, right? So kind of the administration hears and has ears kind of all around. So they know, they can figure it out. They can pick out, if this person is showing confidence, if this person is maybe not being entirely honest, if this person is very nervous, or if this person, they have a good story, but they're just not communicating well, right?
Okay.
And so this practice, and that's really our point of doing mock interviews. It's practice. It's practice to be comfortable with asking questions or answering questions, both, with a stranger.
Okay.
Right? Maybe an admin person you've talked through the email, but this is your first time on camera talking to them. And that might strike some nervousness. That's what's going to happen when you're in an interview with a program director, a resident faculty member.
Okay.
Right? Or a program coordinator.
Okay.
Everything that you're doing during this process for residency is an interview on its own.
Okay.
You go to a conference, you're giving an interview.
Okay.
Your first look matters so much.
Okay.
So these mock interview sessions, they will be structured in a way that they can help students get comfortable in front of a camera, because literally now it's going to be a camera. Most are virtual.
Okay.
Right? And some specialties may do some in person. And so getting comfortable in front of the camera, having the right posture, right? Having that comfort in talking about yourself without, either being overconfident or being, not selling yourself well enough.
Right.
So it's that comfort that we're trying to build, because you have the skills.
Right.
You made it. You made the cut. You got the interview. You have the scores. You have the personal statement. You have exactly what they're looking for. Now, really, can I work with you? Can I call you at 2 a.m. when I have a patient who needs something and I'm relying on you?
Okay. So essentially, these, generally a PD program interviews, it doesn't seem like they're very technical interviews, but they're more about, can I tolerate this person for 70, 80, 90 hours a week?
Right.
That's what they're trying to get at. And that's what you're trying to tease out from the interviews. And the general thinking is that the practice makes perfect. So as you guys organize this with various staff and students, you're hoping if they have an answer as to, like you were mentioning earlier, Dr. Hanan, that are you a team player? The more you keep answering that question, the idea is the better you're going to get at it.
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay.
So, with practice, you'll be able to work on your craft. You'll be able to answer that same question better. You won't be stuttering in some areas. But as you dwell on that question, might probably think of more opportunities that you had in your life that actually answer that question better, right? So the whole goal of these mock interviews is to get them kind of comfortable.
Okay.
Comfortable with the questions, comfortable in answering them, comfortable speaking about their truths. And being able to project themselves in that span of a question,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. So I know we've kind of mentioned that it's been a couple of years that St. James had a more or less, structured approach to residency coaching, but I know that you guys in particular have taken it up a notch. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how you have improved / changed the process a little bit? So why don't we start with you, Dr. Nana? Why don't you tell us what you think, not that it was not done right, but you've added more layers to whatever we had before. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, St. James has always been trying to improve, right? With the counseling position, especially from previous counselors who have done great work in trying to build a structured system which can help fourth year students also in the previous years, how to get them to do well on their exams, but also match process. And so in the previous years, I think, they did webinars, previous counselors, ERAS building, application building, but we wanted to do a bit more. And we wanted to add some things that were questions that were raised in previous years from previous students. And they often ask, can we do this as well? One of the big things was mock interviews. And so we're trying to implement that this year. And that is the goal, to get that going. Another thing we wanted to do in the previous year, we had program directors come in, but we wanted more program directors, right, from different fields. The reason why is because every program director has their own different perspective on what they're looking for in their candidates in that specific specialty. So we wanted more of the individuals to come out, talk about what they're looking for in individuals, talk about what is it that their program requires in their applicants. So that was our goal, to get more individuals to come in and talk to St. James. Right. Some of the other things that we're trying to look into and trying to get going is to have more and more residents that are alumni from St. James, from different specialties, to come on in and talk about not only their resident life, but also what to do and what their programs are looking for. Because a lot of these alumni are the best individuals to provide advice. They've been in the field. They understand what they are looking for in their colleagues, right? These are the individuals who will be working with you. So they have some of the biggest say in who they choose as candidates for PGY1 coming in. So we want to bring in more and more residents from St. James that can speak on the process of match, speak on their actual residency life and their processes, and give us some guidance and some tips, not to the students who are applying to those programs, and in general, how to have good, healthy lifestyle during your resident years. So these are some programs that we're looking at and things that we are pushing through and actually have started up till now. And other programs that we're trying to do, one of the big things is that we noticed that we wanted St. James clinical students to be on the same page, especially when they come down to rotations. Okay. And we wanted them to feel like the school is there for you. Okay. Right? On the island, the school had a presence. There was a building that you can go to with all the school staff. But when you get to rotations, there are Chicago hubs, Texas, West Virginia, but those are administration. Students don't often go to these buildings. So our goal is, we can make a centralized system with the students that it will have a student body that can go ahead and be that support for their for other students who, need advice. What rotations should I take if I want to get into family medicine, right? What is the best area to live? What are some things that I could do on my free time? My hobbies are rock climbing. Is there places for me to do that? So we want to give students that, that support, that community building, because that's the whole goal of St. James. Okay. Right. So those are some of the projects that we are working on, some of the projects we are rolling out. Right.
So Dr. Nizamani, let me ask you this. Sure. Saad mentioned that you guys are getting more program directors. How's that even possible? I mean, like we every year we've had maybe about 1 to 2 programs come in, and they'll just come and pitch to our students, because most often than not, it happens from alumni. Most often than not, it'll be current students who are program directors in that particular field, and they'll send somebody over. How are you guys getting more than that? Like, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What's the process behind this?
Sure. So thankfully enough, with the support of St. James, we were able to go to some of the conferences. One of the conferences we went to was the AAFP.
Okay.
So that's the family physicians, kind of like the academy where they all come together, and they have research presentations. They have awards where St. James actually was recognized for their family medicine interest
Sounds
group.
like the Oscars for doctors.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly it. And and it's pretty fantastic. So they have different workshops. They also have booths. And they have basically a residency fair where there are over, I think 300 to 500 programs there. And so this was our first time ever going to, one of the big conferences. And we got to meet program directors in person. This is a sort of access that you do not get otherwise. Okay, so it's very important. And before we even traveled, we did announce to St. James students or applicants, hey, if you are applying this year and you're interested in family medicine, or even if not, but you want to see what a conference is like, experience it, learn how to network, learn how to get yourself out there, because a lot of us we're so into our books that over the years, our social skills kind of fade away, Right. And then when it comes to interview season, we're like, I don't know how to answer that, or I don't know how to speak to that. I don't know how to build that relationship because we've been so focused. But it's important to be able to build relationships. And these conferences allow for that, venue to build a relationship, right? You could be, so one of the instances, it's really funny. I was going to the restroom and a lady was leaving the restroom. Turns out she liked something I was wearing. Okay. We started a conversation. Turns out she's one of the connections between the White House and the AAFP.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
And we reached out to her. We're like, would you be willing to do a podcast or a webinar and tell us about your role or the importance of AAFP or family physicians when it comes to, healthcare in general in the United States? And she's like, absolutely. So, we're working around different people's schedules and, we're going to hopefully roll out some dates. But, this is one of the ways in which we were able to, talk to more than just one program director.
Okay.
We told them what St. James is all about. And a lot of them were also familiar because they had prior graduates and alumni, from St. James. And we asked, would you be willing to do a webinar for St. James? We told them what the counseling position is about, our role here. And they were quite impressed, very honestly, because it's a unique position. Not every med school has that. Okay. So they were very impressed and they said, this sounds amazing. You're actually trying to help students, where life might not have been in their favor in certain circumstances. And many of the program directors, many of the residents, even if they were not St. James, but let's say if they were international medical graduates, they were more than willing to take out from their busy time to spend and guide, because that's medicine.
Yeah. That's
medicine, right? You help each other out as much as possible.
Yeah, I think typically doctors have a very magnanimous streak, just generally speaking. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sacrificing that chunk or portion of their life to literally help others.
Right.
So, but that's awesome. So, when you guys went to these kinds of conferences, did you meet former St. James students?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
many.
And what was the reaction like, generally speaking?
So much warmth. I mean, they were so welcoming. They grabbed us by the hands and took us from one booth to the other to say, hey, there's another alumni right over there. Let's go meet them. It was like a reunion because many of the residents, we've also, they were our seniors.
Okay.
So it was very welcoming, very warm. And honestly, they had nothing but advice and good information for us. Yes. They took extra time. They wanted to stand with you and be like, where can we help? Where can we have an input to help you out? What are some things that you want to know about? Right? So they were very welcoming. I thought it was the most amazing thing to see all of these residents from St. James just kind of crowd us and circle around us, and just each one was given, there was so much warmth and information that was being provided to us that we didn't know, we didn't want to give anyone no attention. So we were like in the middle of a circle, just looking around. Okay, you're giving me a suggestion now, and then the other individual adds on to that, and you're just in a circle, circling around, just hearing all of these great stories. So it was amazing. Many of our, and the fact is, the amazing part is, not only are they there, but they are they're basically the face of their residencies, right? If you think about it, these booths are trying to get new residents to apply to their programs and come to their programs.
Okay.
And so they have used St. James students, right?
Wow.
So if they're using St. James students and they're using them as the face of their program, then these students most definitely are great students and great individuals and great doctors. That's what I think. Everybody at that conference who was representing their program was the best of their program. They was showcasing, like, look at us, look at where we are at, look at all the work and things that we do with our programs. This is a great program for you to come to. So it was great to see that St. James was being represented so well in so many programs and so diverse.
Yeah, and almost many of the upper class folks that I do know, at least one St. James student or graduate has become a chief in most of the classes. And actually that was a point of sparking conversations in certain instances.
So how do you do that? Do you just go to the chief resident and be like, how do I get your job? Or?
I mean,
Hard work.
I don't know how to answer that. But I think the first thing that you do is you always go in with a smile.
Yeah.
You always want to be pleasant. They're exhausted. They have been talking to hundreds of other potential applicants who are as good as you are in terms of probably credentials, right? People have done so much work, volunteer experience, but you want to make sure that you can build a relationship. We had other people telling us, oh, we're going to hundreds of booths and things like that. We weren't able to do that. We did not go to a great number of booths. What we focused was on going to specific programs where we knew, one thing is that, they're welcoming towards St. James.
Okay.
Right?
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
Looks like. Wow.
Absolutely. You want to be able to stand there and have a conversation and see, can I, not just for you to get residency, but also can I have a conversation with the program director?
Okay.
Are they friendly? Yes, they are very tired. Of course, you might be tired too, but can you have a two-way conversation? Because you're going to need to communicate when you're in residency. You might go through something with the patient and you might need to just talk to your PD.
Okay.
Can you make that phone call?
Okay.
Right? So you're obviously it's very, common kind of social skills, but also you're trying to assess, do I get along with this person, right? Am I able to have a conversation? So, you go in and generally speaking, if it's a program that you're very much interested in, you should do some research.
Okay.
Don't go into a program and be like, can you just tell me about your program? Although they will not dislike that question because that's why they're there. But in general, you want to be prepared.
Right.
Right? You want to be prepared. You want to stand out. You want to be like, look, I'm interested in your program for this, and that reason. And here is what I have been able to do that you might like or that I can offer, right? It's a two-way street. Programs need residents. Residents need programs as well to train them.
Right.
So you work together and you see how you can benefit that program. So there was this one program that had a transitional year for people who are coming out of, having been imprisoned, and I have volunteer experience background in that.
Okay.
So I was able to relate on that, and that's very specific. It's not a common
so
experience.
The program takes former inmates as doctors?
No. So they actually, one of the faculty members was very much interested in helping people who come out of prison because they usually don't have a lot of resources available. Okay. Their education levels are usually not as high. Yeah. So they need assistance. And they also are restricted to healthcare.
Okay.
So one of the physicians was actually helping with transitional housing.
Oh,
and was actually helping with providing healthcare. Yeah. And so that's something that I could relate to, and that's not common find.
Right. Okay.
So you try to find your common ground and see like your future in that program, but also, how that program, what's the environment like, and you can really very easily pick up when you go to a booth. And you see the PDs laughing and joking with a resident, and you're just like, oh, this is great. I can have that like we can be like friends. Yes, we have a hierarchy, absolutely, but I can talk to you. We can be friends. So you do some research, but also you be yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys. I think that's all we have time for today. Dr. Nizamani and Dr. Hanan, thank you so much for all the hard work that you've put in taking our residency preparatory program to another level. We'll put down the links for all the webinars as well as the schedule in the comments below. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And if you are a St. James student, please look out for emails from Dr. Hanan and Dr. Nizamani. We have some big things coming up. Looks like we have at least a couple of webinars / podcasts with program directors. As a part of this series, we also have webinars with alumni who are chief residents. We have interviews with CMOs of various residency hospitals. So we have a lot of stuff coming at you. Please watch this space. And if you're a St. James student, please keep an eye out for emails from Dr. Hanan and Dr. Nizamani. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, there is no shortcut to becoming an MD.
None.
Thank you so much for tuning into our show. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Med School Minutes. If you like our content, please follow us and receive notification when a new show is posted. This podcast is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. For a video version of this podcast, please check us out on sjsm.org/video.